Was it an attempt to profit off the war? The Financial Times is reporting that a broker for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth contacted BlackRock Investments about making a multi-million-dollar investment in major defense companies right before the U.S. strikes on Iran. That's according to three people familiar with the matter. The report says that the investment, which did not go through, would have involved massive defense contractors for the U.S. government. We should note that MS Now has not been able to independently confirm this report. But a spokesman for the Pentagon has called it, quote, entirely false and fabricated, and demanded a retraction. Joining me now, Politico White House and Foreign Affairs correspondent Eli Stokols. Rick Stengel is back with us. Eli, we were hoping to get a response directly from Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon briefing today, but none of the reporters called on or asked about it. So where does this story go from here?
Well, it's a good question. You have the Pentagon's denial of the story, and you have Pentagon Defense Secretary who routinely attacks the press for making things up. And so I think we're going to see the usual blanket dismissal from the administration of this story. If more outlets are able to corroborate the reporting, then they may have more questions to answer because, as you noted, even in an administration that has somewhat normalized pay-to-play politics with things like the Ballroom Project and the president conducting business at his personal club Mar-a-Lago, a cabinet member appearing to attempt to profit off of a war that they are conducting is a shocking level, orders of magnitude different than any of the other things that we have seen if it were to be true. But again, at this point, we have a four-byline story from a credible news organization, the Financial Times, and we have the defense secretary dismissing it out of hand. That's where we are at the moment.
I think, Rick, the seriousness of this, were it to be true, cannot be overstated. But does it matter if, according to the Financial Times reporting, no investment was actually made? Does that make a difference?
No, it doesn't. Not in terms of the law. Intent, a conspiracy, all of those things, it doesn't necessarily have to have the investment made. And I think your point that today would have been the perfect time for the defense secretary to say, no, this isn't true. This had nothing to do with me. I don't know anything about it. As you say, it can't be overstated how serious this is. And in a functioning democracy, you'd have cabinet members resigning over this. And you'd also have Congress investigating it and also contemplating the impeachment power. I mean, Article 2 says that for executive officers, treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors that is the standard for impeachment. And by the way, in the 18th century, bribery didn't necessarily mean just handing money over to a government official. It meant corruption in general. That is what this is an intimation of, whether we don't know whether it's true or not.
Yeah, when I was at the White House, and at that point, our Pentagon folks, every major news organization would get their chance. That is not what's happening now. So that's the other story here, is that the questions are not being asked by people who are going to ask those tough questions. But, Rick, it was just a couple of days ago that there were insider trading concerns, especially because of the big trades made right before the president delayed attacks on Iran's energy infrastructure. How does this latest story fit in? Again, and I think the point is important, this is order of magnitude so much different than the other things we've seen. Whether or not you profit over a contract to build something is very different from something where men and women serving the United States of America are putting their lives at risk.
Yes. And what's different, Chris, is this administration, which from the very beginning has had a mercenary aspect to it. I mean, you have now foreign envoys and ambassadors and foreign ministers. When they're trying to make a deal with the Trump administration, they're putting in something that would benefit Trump personally, benefit the Trump family. The entire kind of raison d'etre of Trump's administration is about the enrichment of his own small coterie of oligarchs around him. So this is in keeping with that. Again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. We don't have necessarily evidence that anybody in the Trump administration was involved with it, but it does seem to be of a piece with other aspects of the administration. And as you said, Because the fact that this is happening where young men and women's lives are at stake, where they're risking their lives for the kind of values that we prize at home, this is really a dereliction of duty.
So Eli Hegseth himself has been in the news now back-to-back days, right? This story, but then there was the other about the discomfort inside the Pentagon at the way he's infused faith and religion into matters of war. But have you heard any rumblings at all, any indication that the president feels any less strongly about his job performance? He has praised him repeatedly, including at last week's cabinet meeting.
No, and I think the reason for that, Chris, is that Pete Hegseth is there to please the usual audience of one. It is not surprising that career uniformed officers and personnel at the Pentagon would find the secretary's behavior, the way he talks about a war in which people are dying, different, off-putting, too flamboyant, not humble enough about the sacrifices being made. We hear those things from rank and file and from other people in these corners around town. But at the White House, it seems like this is exactly what Donald Trump wants from Pete Hegseth. He is there. I mean, we've seen him standing beside General Dan Kane at these briefings, right? Kane is giving the more sober, more specific assessment of what's happening in theater. And Hegseth is messaging for his former colleagues at Fox News and for the president in the Oval Office who is watching. And I think, by that metric, the secretary's performance has pleased the president. He likes the bombast. He likes the over-the-top rhetoric. It's not dissimilar from the way he communicates himself, the president. And so I think it's obvious why we're seeing that kind of breakdown where he may be alienating more traditional officers and people at the Pentagon and pleasing this president at the same time.
Eli Stokols, Rick Stengel, thank you both.